ground outside of Hardin, Montana, a few miles from Little Bighorn. Custer's last stand. We're surrounded by fields of what I found out just now, barley. I had a question earlier about the large fields over in the Bighorn Basin that we passed, and often with people out there with hoes. And I found that what they were doing was thinning out sugar beets plants so they can come back through. They haven't found an effective way to do that by machinery at this point. Just near a ridge, this is where the Indian encampment was, down in this valley. The tree line. The Little Bighorn River runs through there. And the mountains in the background is where Custer moved his regiment. His idea was to come in and capture the women and children, and thus defeat the Indians. The Indians were sleeping in that morning because of the celebration the night before. The battle took place on the first markers indicate where various members fell. This is a cemetery where they were initially buried. They were there and escaped the battle after losing their
This is not real comfortable. On the day of the battle here in 1876, up the hill here where General Custer fell, the temperature was over 100 degrees. Soldiers would be wearing a wool shirt, usually this dark gray kind. You see the peculiar kind of iron button on here. They wear this over a set of, this is Civil War surplus. These are blue wool trousers. Sky blue it's called. You got the suspenders here. Pockets are placed kind of up top here. You got a kind of a watch pocket or something. There aren't any pockets on the sides.
Or the back.
Or the back. Right. There's a reason for that. As an enlisted man, you didn't really have any need for pockets. See the yellow trim? The yellow trim around here, and this varies a lot from regiment to regiment. I mean, some had the piping and some didn't. A little trim down here on the sleeve. And yellow indicates that you're a cavalryman. You're a horse soldier. On cover. Yeah. There we go. This is called a kepi, which is a French word. And that's appropriate that it's a French word because this is a French design of a hat. In the 19th century, at least up till the Franco-Prussian War, I think in 1871, military styles in the United States tended to be copied from the French. Remember, one of the most impractical campaign hats ever designed. These varied in color, incidentally. I think the color was supposed to be black. This type of hat could be, this is a campaign hat or slouch hat. And it could be worn like this, and they usually didn't wear the, if you go to movies and watch TV like I do, you're going to notice something missing here. You know, where are the little gold beads and little hat cord around here. They usually didn't wear them. They usually just wore a plain hat like this. Soldiers didn't like these. You'd probably get something a little more practical like this. Or maybe a hat of a different color. We've got a gray hat back there. Gray, white, brown, about anything you can get. It would vary. If you're going to campaign in the summer, this is a pretty good choice. This is just a basic straw hat. It's called a skimmer. A lot of troopers wore these. Some of the officers did too. Major Reno had a hat like this on when he started his charge down in the valley. And it's pretty effective in hot weather, and it costs about a quarter. And of course, that's big money because you're only getting $13 a month. But anyway, and you know, old world craftsmanship. Actually, these weren't too bad. They all came in the same width. They're one size. Well, I guess they're different lengths, but the width was all the same. And the standard procedure, because none of them fit when they're new, was to go out and get them waded around in a creek or something and get them good and wet and then wear them until they dried. Then they kind of take the form of your feet. Now, the problem is when you do that, these things are constructed with brass nails all the way through here. And the brass nails will start working through the soles right into your feet. And this became a serious enough problem that the Army complained about it. They complained to Congress, and Congress did what Congress usually does. They appointed a committee, study the matter. These soldiers wandering around out there with nails in their feet. And after sufficient deliberation of I don't know how long, they came up with a solution. They allotted a little bit of extra money so that these troopers could have little files, I imagine one per squad or something like that, got little files so they could go in there and file those nails off when they came in. They knew how uncomfortable they were. And they would normally cut the bottoms off, just throw them away, and then they'd sew these things together, and they made pretty good pouches. We had we've got some books in the bookstore by Dr. Thomas Marcus. He was an Indian Health Service physician who was at Crow and at Lame Deer in the early 1920s. And even in Marcus's times, there were Cheyenne warriors, and you see that the movie involves cavalry. You're going to see guys charging around with sabers. And you're going to see all sorts of pictures of General Custer up there making his last stand, and he's got a saber and he's getting ready to fight it out. Well, they didn't have sabers out here. They didn't use them. There's a real simple explanation of why. General Custer was going to sneak up on a group of Sioux and Cheyenne warriors camped right down there. And listen to this. Sounds noisy, that is? And I'll tell you, if I was a sergeant and I had some recruit who let a scabbard get this dirty, he'd be shoveling stables for the rest of his hitch. But normally these were kept pretty shiny. I don't know, we don't have very ironclad discipline around this outfit. I'm going to have to get these boys out and work them over. But normally these were kept pretty shiny. And that's another problem if you're trying to sneak up on somebody. A conscientious trooper would polish this brass hilt, and this would be a nice shiny silver color down here. And you'd be able to see the glint of that for miles. There's no way you're going to sneak up and you've got a bunch of guys riding around like this. There, pal, but we don't want to get too technical here. This is a breech-loading, single-shot 45 caliber weapon. A 45 caliber weapon fires a bullet about as big as my thumb. Caliber is a reference to the diameter up here. This is fired, manual arm. This incidentally is a sling. You guys who carried Garand M1s and Springfields and stuff like that, this fit over the trooper's soldier. This fit over the trooper's shoulder. See if I can get my mouth working here. And he would ride along with this. The idea was that the trooper wouldn't lose his carbine this way, because enlisted men are not really very well trained. They'll ride along, they'll lose things, you know. So you just kind of attach the carbine to the trooper. You can't lose it. Let's dismount this sling here. This weighs a little less than 7 pounds. And this is a short version of the infantry rifle that was also adopted in 1873. This is called an Allen system, incidentally. This was designed right after the Civil War. And the original cowboy shows, this is a single-action 45 caliber Colt revolver. This was adopted in 1873 by the Army. It's a very rugged design. I'm going to make sure it's empty. Yep. It's a very rugged design. It has 7 moving parts, not counting your trigger finger. And it's easy to shoot. And that's fortunate because you're not going to get a chance to shoot it. You as recruits would probably steal it and go to the gold fields. So a lot of company officers, and this appears in Ricky's books, there's a temptation, a company officer or whoever was responsible for keeping the guns, they generally didn't issue them to the soldiers so they could go out and shoot them. Here again, ammunition's expensive, and these things are easy to shoot. I'll show you what the manual of arms for shooting one is. It's not hard to do. They would normally lock these up under some officer's bunk so that the troopers wouldn't steal them and desert. So when you're going out on a campaign, you would be issued one of these and probably 24 rounds of ammunition. Now that's great. You're a one-man army there with one of these. You can fire 6 rounds without reloading. The problem with one of these is, although it's a fine mechanism, well-engineered, and in fact still in use, you find people around here who still shoot competitively with the same gun. They have a little better sight. With a lot of practice, you can become a pretty good shot with one of these. Well, let's see how it shoots. What you do to load it is flip the loading gate open. There's an extractor up here, a little spring-loaded thing that runs a rod right back through the cylinder. So you get the, yeah, there it comes. And this ejector, and this will work. I don't care how dirty your gun is or how the case is stuck in there with verdigris and stuff like that. It'll push the case out. But once again, you can see that this is going to be slow to reload because after you've fired your 6 rounds, you're going to have to do that 6 times. So you're down there ejecting, trying to get your cases out, then you have to fish your ammunition out, then you have to reload, close your loading gate, go to full cock. This is single action. This is what it looks like when it's ready to fire. You have to cock it manually, and I don't want to damage the firing pin, so I won't snap the trigger, but you take aim. Here again, let's say we've got a guy sneaking in up there, point it, fire, and then fire this way. And here again, the hammer will normally saddle, and soldiers will, this is called a thimble belt, and the troopers will a lot of times just make up their own equipment. And that's another thing that you guys with service in World War II in Korea would probably be a little surprised to find out, is that they don't issue stuff like this. You know, these guys are just kind of improvising. It would be worn over here, and you'd have to flip this flap up and draw, because traditionally you carry the saber on that side. And you carry maybe your extra rounds right in the cartridge.
First-time visitors, huh? That's great. Okay. I'm also a first-time visitor. As Jack said, I'm a brand new superintendent here. I've spent the last 17 years at the national parks throughout the West, starting in Whiskeytown Lake, Northern California, Crater Lake, Redwood National Park, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, and a bunch of other ones. I know I don't look very old, but I've been a lot of different places. Maybe some of you are from. Spent a lot of time in California, Oregon, in North Dakota. I'm originally from North Dakota. I'm a Mandan Heradza from the Fort Brother Reservation, and came out of Southern Oregon State. That's where I went to college, in case you folks are from Oregon. My college is SOC, Southern Oregon State College, which is a very good college. Anyway, this year we're having a lot of new programs happening.
And for many years, it was just that to many people, particularly the Crow tribe. In recent years, it's been called Custer Country. And therein, I believe, lies a clash of ideas.
West Point, New York. 5 years after the battle, in 1881, all the remaining graves on the battlefield were disinterred and the remains placed in a common grave atop Last Stand Hill. The granite memorial marks the site. Today, as you look across the field of battle, you see white markers indicating where bodies of the troopers were initially found and buried. However, no bodies lay buried on the battlefield today. The Battle of the Little Bighorn was one episode in a long conflict between two cultures, Euro-Americans and Native Americans, that failed to understand one another. At the heart of the problem was the difference in attitude regarding land use and ownership. The Great Plains have been inhabited by various nomadic tribes for centuries, but the inexorable tide of Euro-American settlement, which accelerated during the 19th century, put increasing pressure on native peoples of the region. In order to retain their traditional way of life, the Ojibwe of Chippewa, present-day Wisconsin, were obliged to relocate to the west, to present-day Minnesota and northern Iowa. They displaced the Lakota, or Sioux, who subsequently moved into what is now North and South Dakota. Further south, the same sort of displacement happened to the Cheyenne, who moved west into present-day Nebraska and Kansas. Ultimately, the Cheyenne became allied with the Sioux, and together both groups moved still further west into Crow territory in what is now Wyoming and Montana. This encroachment by the Sioux and Cheyenne may explain why the Crow allied themselves with the Reel across a cattle guard that marks the boundary between the Park Service property and the Crow Reservation. With the exception of the Reno-Benteen site itself, most of what you see from here south will be on the Crow Reservation. From this point, we have a good view of the Valley of the Little Bighorn. Here, in the summer of 1876, between 7,000 and 8,000 Sioux and Cheyenne, including as many as 2,000 warriors, established a village of about 1,000 lodges. It was perhaps the largest gathering of Plains Indians ever. The encampment was located on the west bank of the Little Bighorn River and extended from the line of trees directly ahead, north for more than 1.5 miles. Interstate 90 skirts the western periphery of this nearly 2-square-mile village. The village actually consisted of about 8 separate or individual villages, or circles. 7 of these circles represented the 7 different bands of the Teton Sioux, the Miniconjou, Unpapa, Blackfeet, Ogallala, Brule, Tukattle, and Sanzar. Northern Cheyenne occupied the 8th or northernmost circle. To your right or west, beyond the valley floor and Interstate 90, you will see a high bench ground where the Indians grazed their herds of ponies, estimated to have numbered between 20,000 and 30,000 head at the time of the battle. To the nomadic mounted Plains Indians, ponies represented wealth and were a primary means of exchange. A Sioux warrior might have several war ponies especially trained for battle, and a different set of horses for hunting buffalo and other game. Indian women also owned about as many ponies as the men. As heads of households, women owned the teepees and were responsible for packing and moving them, along with all other household items from camp. Horse-drawn cowboy made the job easier. Pitching camp was also woman's work. At the time of the battle in late June, the Little Bighorn River was flushed with snowmelt from the Bighorn Mountains about 50 miles to the south. The water level here at what is now called Miniconjou Ford was about 3 feet deep, or up to a horse's belly.
We're now entering Miniconjou Ford, and off to the front and to the right of the bus, mainly off to the right, you can see the Little Bighorn River. And it's probably about as full.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now our trail is going to lead you off of this bus. After your driver is parked and open the doors, please meet at the patio area near
send his, on the side of the hills, send his scouts out to a place at the Wolf Mountains. The Wolf Mountains are not the snow-capped peaks, but they're the mountains that we see in the distance off to the south. Locate the crow's nest is to follow the closer tree-lined ridge off to the east. Follow out with a little thumb or a little peak on the right side of that dip. Well, just to the right side of that thumb is the crow's nest. Now, it's about 15 miles away from where we are today, so a little deceiving how high that actually is. When you're up there, you can see many miles to the east, to the north, all blocks from sea to the south, but except to the valley out there, you can never see the fires of the encampment out there in the valley. But beyond that, beyond the valley, you saw a darkness, looking dark like maybe some of the cultivated fields we see on the high ground off to the west today. Not that it's green, but that it would be darker. But if the scouts looked at that area for 15 or 20 minutes, the shape would change. It would move around. And we're seeing like a 30,000 ponies racing on this high bench ground. Well, between all these signs, they were pretty sure that the encampment, the large encampment, were over here in the valley. We got word to Custer. Custer himself climbed up to the crow's nest. By the time he got there, it was about mid-morning. Couldn't see anything. He trusted his scouts, who went back and got his troops together. They proceeded to march in a westward direction along Reno Creek, now called Reno Creek. Well, off to the southwest here in the far distance, instead of the for centuries amongst the Indians. First the Crow and later the Sioux and the Cheyenne. It was good hunting ground. This area was always full of game. Custer was concerned that whatever Indians were out here might escape south into the safety of those Big Horn Mountains and get away. And of course, if that happened, the military would have been out here all summer, probably wouldn't have even have seen an Indian, let alone residents on the reservation. So shortly after leaving the Crow's Nest area, Custer sent Captain Benteen with 3 companies of men, about 120 men, marching off in the southwest direction to see if there were any war encampments in that direction and also check for escaping Indians headed that direction. Custer and the rest of the men would continue down what is now that were with Custer ran across a place where there was an Indian encampment that had been set up but had recently broken up. Past the first scouts reported seeing about 40 or 50 Indians going over the high ground down Reno Creek headed toward the west. So Custer knew a couple of things. One is, yes, he probably found the Indians, but he also thought that those Indians were breaking up camp like this one did and dispersing. And again, the military would have been out here all summer, probably wouldn't have found one of them. So he ordered Major Reno to take another 3 companies of men, about 140 in this case, continue down Reno Creek, pursue those Indians, and attack Indian encampment he found out here before they could get away. And Custer would follow about a half an hour later. Well, when Custer came down this area, he saw on the hillside, just on the other side of this parking lot, about 60 or 70 warriors, not being threatening, just pretty much sitting around seeing what was going to happen. Headed to the north to encourage those warriors to get back into the main body of Indians. Who's confused by now? Who's where? Well, so far we've got 3 groups of folks here. We've got Captain Benteen going off checking hills and nooks and crannies off to the southeast. We've got Reno going down Reno Creek to the west. We've got Custer now headed up to the north. Behind all these folks, there's a pack train of about 175 mules, led by some civilian packers, but also another bunch of military with them. And they're dragging along behind everybody else about halfway back to the Crow's Nest. Now this pack train is carrying food and ammunition for the troopers. It's also carrying food for the horses, because these are Kentucky thoroughbred horses. They're not going to eat this grass. They're going to starve to death first. So a lot of what these troopers are dragging along, they're also food for the horses. So now that we kind of know where everybody is and what they're doing and that sort of thing, if we go out to this lookout point, the 3 sighting posts are farther to the west, and I'll continue to talk from that. They mount up again. When they're mounted again, finally, Reno tells them to charge. Not toward the Indians, charge the other direction, toward the bluffs where we are. The man that heard followed them and charged toward the bluffs. They came across the river, up the high ground where we are, primarily up the south side, up the side of this ravine, to some safety of the high ground. While all this business is going on, Benteen is still down to the south, checking up some crannies. Custer's going up Cedars Coulee. Custer's probably thinking just how he wants to utilize these resources.
Hoping to be able to take the women and children, capture them, which would have ended the battle tactic he had used before. One of the soldiers got civilians in this plot. White bobblehead soldiers scattered over the field. Trading post just
You still see the remaining high point of ground directly in front of us. And of course, as the warriors came up the gullies and stuff, the commanders wanted control over, especially this high ground. So they would send Company C down from the high ground down into this area, and that's where they would engage the warriors under the command of Lane Whiteman, who was a Cheyenne, just to try to give a better idea of who was where when.
The markers you see at this point on both sides of the road represent soldiers killed as the warriors rushed up from both sides of the ridge. The troopers on Calhoun Hill did a credible job of defending themselves. Look out the left side of the bus, and you will notice that Calhoun Hill isn't just a knob. Instead, it's more bowl-shaped with a lip.
And out the right side are those additional markers down all in the bottom of that ravine to the right of the bus.
By this time, Custer may have approached the river, searching and finding another ford. It is believed that Custer saw the women and children gathering on the other side of the river, but did not have enough troops to capture several thousand people. He waited about 20 minutes, perhaps hoping Benteen and the pack train would arrive. At this time, the rear guard experienced a great anxiety among the burial details, who feared that the warriors might return. Once all bodies were buried, the troops left this area, marching north along the valley of the Little Bighorn, and then the Bighorn River, and back to the safety of the north side of the...
And so the mass grave soldiers killed in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, June 25th to 26th, 1876. At this site, hundreds of Sioux and Cheyenne warriors defeated 5 cavalry companies, about 220 soldiers, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. As you look over the battlefield, you can see the white markers showing where the bodies of soldiers were found after the fight. No markers show where the warriors fell, because very little is known of their casualties. Probably less than 100 were killed, and the dead were removed by their families immediately after the battle. Only the Sioux and Cheyenne words tell us what happened to the 200 soldiers killed in the fight. Some Indian accounts say that Custer and his men may have tried to cross the river 1.5 miles to your left. Angry warriors, led by Powell, raced across the river and forced the troops back to the ridges. Having lost the initiative, the soldiers found themselves in rough terrain, unsuitable for mounted action. The companies seemed to have made individual stands, fighting on foot against the waves that were rolling in from every direction. The warriors did not need to expose themselves to the troopers' fire. Dismounted, they moved from sagebrush to sagebrush and took advantage of the numerous ravines. Finally, Crazy Horse, crossing farther downstream, below the present visitor center, swept around this ridge with a large force to cut off further retreat. Here, about 50 soldiers gathered around Custer, shot their horses for precedence, and followed the end. The battle lasted 2 hours at most. 5 miles away, the rest of Custer's regiment remained under siege. On the morning of June 27th, after the Sioux and Cheyenne had departed, General Terry's column arrived and hastily buried the soldiers where they had fallen.
Crazy Horse came on this trip right behind. Still on the ridge, but opposite the side of the battle was engaged. Further down is Cooley. Listen, the old Cooley is where Custer crossed over. trading post just outside. Doesn't upload around here. Ground's over there. And what this building is right here. Looks like it's fairly new. Trailed behind some horses. Pantry, the bunk, and the seats. Sitting on the pad, concrete pad. I don't see any water hookup though, or sewerage. Old pines stacked up here. I don't know if they're getting ready to put up some couple of teepees or what. Signals, baggage carts. What, I don't know. I might find this has some significance. Maybe that does too. Flying station. Use that handle, cans up, and a container on the top. You can see how many gallons you want in. Farm equipment over here. Hay rakes, planters, wool spreaders, conveyors, something. I don't know what they are. Whenever we take pictures, we've been taking them of any of the ranches. They're cattle ranches. You can see an awful lot of sheep here over on the other side of the hill. Both sides of the road. Dams here is over on the other side. I don't know if they have been separated or separated themselves. Oh, right down here next to the fence when I got out. But they're following the leader. workshop. I think this might be under construction as part of their complex. They hope to have when everything is completed, including an airport. 7,200 feet. University, medical center. He's a rescue. Good friend, believer in a crazy horse, Billy Haycock. Today, up there somewhere, I can hear the air drills running.
Isn't that cool? Oh, yeah. Jar?
Face finished by the end of the decade. Walking over there, they walked up this underside lawn up on the top of the lawn, and now headed towards the base. Nice to get around to the front of this thing. Let's see if we can get a look at it. This is the sign of prints that we have. Sure look. This is the last picture I'll take. on the mountain. I was fortunate enough to get back here at the end of the century when the head is supposed to be completed. You may be able to see people working up there. I can't see them with the naked eye, but I'll check later with the binoculars. Man, suspended platform working right beneath the one down on the ground, on the surface under his chin. There's also one hanging in the swinging scaffolding or platform, working right in the area to the left of the horse's head on what will be his little up here feeding. On the way up the mountain to them in Custer National or Custer Park. It's a state park, wildlife from the direction that we came. False Tower. Another big rock pile. Spirals right at the base of it. Down across the valley that we came out of. Into the tunnel barely wide enough for him to get through. This is Keystone, South Dakota, just outside of a short distance from Mount Rushmore. Brooklyn Historical Museum is here. In fact, we're in the parking lot.
Right, there's 40s back there and me right here.
Amphitheater, standing right at the foot of the stage, looking up over the American flag. Looking back up towards the observation post, platform, gift shop, whatever up there. studio. Winch. Tunnels in the pines, you see the Mount Rushmore directly ahead of us. I also want to take a picture of this bridge behind us. Gideon designed and built these bridges out of the native lumber. It was cut to fit, treated, and assembled. This is the road makes a 360-degree turn. You go under the bridge, then over the bridge, two tunnels. Rushmore looking through the two tunnels, standing on top of the bridge. All in these bridges, in these tunnels. Margaret patiently waiting. Hey, back up. I can't get your picture here. Sharp turn up there, and this whole herd of wild burros feeding right along the road. I stopped it. Get a picture, rolled the window down, and darn if one of them didn't come up and stick his head in the window. Couldn't get much of a picture. Herd of buffalo over here. Here we have another one. Good sized herd of buffalo. We saw part of them down below, on the far side of the hill. They got a watering hole down there. It looks like there might be 50 or 60 of them. Or more. Trying to nurse. There's a little fall out there. Pretty mommy. And there's another one nursing. The whole herd here, and it looks like they're all cows and they're young. They pick the ticks and the bugs off of them. For that, they get a free ride. And the little baby. Back here's two of them. That one. Here. Laura, you have my binocs?
Over here.
No racing. Brian, look.
Devil's Tower in Crook County, Wyoming, about 20 miles from Sundance. The Sundance Kid took his name from Sundance when he was serving time for stealing horses. General Crook gave him credit for breaking the Indians' back, so to speak, and opening up the West without fear of the Indians. However, as I remember, General Crook, he may have done all that, but I've got to verify it. I think he was kind of a person that got the job done no matter how he had to do it, which meant killing women and children. Tower, First National Monument. I'm seeing climbers on this side. I do see an ambulance sitting at the base of the tower. You see the long rib-like sections. It said the last large slab fell about 10,000 years ago, which will give you an idea how long it probably will stand. The vegetation around takes on a beauty of the Devil's Tower within my back. I'm looking out over the valley. Going up there. We've been alerted that the rescue team will be coming this way. Over they're starting, well, somebody's starting down from that point too now, aren't they? With the injured person on a one-wheel litter. They started to take a picture of them coming down, but they said no pictures.
So there were a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of climbers involved in getting them down then? So how long did it take them to get through them after it fell? somebody said broken back. Is that not right then? Or they don't know?
I can't say. They back ordered it. But they should be too that way.
Yeah. So they don't know really yet.
I don't. In fact, even when we moved himself, they got him here, they could actually come around. Oh, so when you're hurt, I can see it from here. Yeah, see what normally when you go up, they put in little protection things, so normally the farthest fall would probably be about 10 feet. But he was the lead, so he was putting it in for his group that was going to help us. And he was having struggles and he's been up there for a long time, and then he just came down and so he fell probably almost about 4 feet. Let me see what person. He fell down and
They're going up, they're almost achieved their goal. Coming down, they've got a long way to come. Climbers all over this mountain. I don't know how many are part. In front of the prairie dog town of Devil's Tower as we are leaving. Oh, Devil's Tower, now we see the devil. Here for the celebration, but we'll be thinking about you. Stuff you could have, since we aren't allowed to take pictures during the performance. We were told that we could go in and take some pictures. Now, so we're on our way to eat. And I thought we have excellent seats right down in front, right in that area. I think the 4th row back. And you see spearfish out beyond the sea. It is set in the Black Hills. Walls, South Dakota. Water spring. By that man and woman that built the town found the spring. Pretty cold drink of water. Everywhere I go, I see that lady. She's always carrying something. Restored in 1960. Stop in the Badlands, about 15 minutes out of a wall. Waited out a hailstorm early fossils embedded in the mud called the Pierre Shale, the gully below. That's what we're looking at. The storm is moving into this area. We're looking down at the road we came up, and the vehicles on the road. And in the background, more of the bad line. We see where they gave way to the prairie and the green. This is another overview of the bad lines. You can hear the thunder. Just reported severe thunderstorm watch in the Badlands and the Wall area. Tornado watch up till 9 o'clock tonight. Alongside of it, I hear the rumbling there. Very pretty. As a matter of fact, you could say it's beautiful. The sun is sitting over the top of the hill behind me. So bright you can't look at it. The storm, I think, is off in the distance. With all the threats of tornado and warnings and for Wall and this area, the Badlands. The main thing that we got was it probably won't turn out very well. I can't even look at it. I don't know how the camera will. Wind's still blowing. It appears I know that tornado warning was turned to a tornado watch about an hour ago. So I hope it is all behind us. This is a right nice campground. Taken from the campground as we're on the way out. The sun is shining nice and bright. Of course, it started out that way yesterday. Back towards the pass. There, through. The campgrounds are down the other side. This is the most spectacular view yet. time we've been able to get this close to prairie dogs. I guess they know. Homestead built into the side of a hill covered with sod. It was on the national record. And it's in bloom and it's growing all over the roof of this sod house. Looking back down the back side of the house over the cave, I guess it was a place to store food. I'm sure that's the back half.
Turn of the century. The largest number of homesteads filed for in any one year in all the western states was in 1913. The last homestead was filed for in this county in 1935. However, by 1918, most every 160 acres had been filed for, and most of the homesteaders were living in their claims. Crop failure and hard times in general forced many people to abandon their land early. But when the drought and depression of the 1930s began to force all but the most stubborn ones off the land, conditions such as hard times, drought, grasshoppers and other disasters, as well as machinery, household furnishings, and general living conditions were very much the same throughout the Great Plains from 1850 through the 1930s. The villages have had some maintenance work done recently, and in 1966, the roof of the cave was rebuilt. We hope you enjoy our prairie homestead and that it has shown you an important phase of our American heritage. Welcome, migrated from eastern Nebraska by covered wagon to homestead this 160 acres. Arriving late in the fall, they immediately began to build the dugout portion of their home. They started by digging out the kitchen and bedroom portion. The next step was to cut down the cottonwood trees from the draw in front of the house and lay up the beams in the front of the dugout. A trip now had to be made south to the White River with team and wagon to get the slabs to cover the beams. As soon as the slabs were in place, 6 to 8 inches of dirt was shoveled over the roof. 2 small boards and 2 pieces of building paper served as a room divider between the kitchen and bedroom. This was their completed home. In a few years, the dugout walls began to cave in, and the boards were placed around the perimeter of the 2 rooms. By the next year, the sod walls as well as the boards were covered with a calcimine-like material from the Badlands, with which the boards are now painted. As the years went by, the walls were covered with various types of material and then wallpapered. The frame room was added in 1930. filed for in Jackson County at the turn of the century. The largest number of homesteads filed for in any one year.
Chicken house and what appears to have been maybe for sheep or goats. Pigs, something on the other side there. No description. This is the barn. It's kept the horses and cattle. Obviously, this is the place they kept the horses. The other side, cow, chicken run around here.
Palace was built, the land office had moved to the Twice-That Act passed during Lincoln's administration, offered 160 acres of farmland free of charge to anyone who could live on it for 5 years. And a boom mentality was born that earned the name, the Wild West. The city of Mitchell was just 12 years old when the first Corn Palace went up 2 blocks south of where you're sitting. It was promoted by Louis Beckwith and L.O. Gale to compete with the Grain Palace, 20 miles west of here in Plankinton. The Corn Palace was the centerpiece for a week-long event called the Corn Belt Exposition, which was to feature top-flight entertainment, showcase the latest in farming equipment, and celebrate a new land and a new West. To fully appreciate the magnitude of this effort, it must be remembered that farming in those days was a hands-on business, and the hundreds of bushels of corn.
From the Badlands, the nice, lush vegetation. There's campground. About 3 miles. About 3 miles east of Mitchell. I guess Maureen is going up to Mark is going up to call Maureen, tell her where we are and when to expect us. This is the Fred Little campground. Camp hostess coming by. Camp poster. I think she came out to put the flag up. I think she might be out of bed early. It's 10 o'clock, and I don't think she usually gets up to about 1. This is the house that's built into the side of the hill. always hear stories about the guy that is there. Apparently the woman is very nice. Son Maureen, his new acquisition, which is in itself a story, separate story that
I'm always taking a picture of Don taking a picture of
told
George.
at the entrance to the trailer. Where's Gene? Look.
Don in the background, he's monitoring his pace. This is the room where Don and I have been working for several days trying to record our tapes and get them all together. Frankly, we don't know what we have thus far. Don and Margaret have gone to Atlanta. They'll be back tomorrow. And maybe we can get some of this. The gardener is working his way down to the boat, and he gets behind the tree. There he goes. Nope. Well, we got Mr. Gardner at the helm. Of course, he's drinking and driving, as you can well see. And there's Ms. Gardner. She's taking care of the kitchen activities and taking pictures, as usual. And over here in this corner, we got Gene dreaming. What? You could see that we're pretty far out in the lake now. Over there is the beach for the military personnel. You can see it a little better. That's all. You want to take pictures? All right. All you do is push this. Let's see, the camera. You just push that red button. Take it.
The power is off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Press the button, and it'll say REC. You got the camera backwards. No, you have. No, you're right. You're right. We're right on the same line.
You push it the second time, George, whenever...
What?
Well, you push that button the second...
Red button. I was taking pictures back there where I was.
Well, I press camera thing. I guess it's taking a picture.
It says REC up at the top. And those arrows going across.
They're going across, yeah.
And it says REC.
Right. Where you checking at, George?
What? I'm checking out the sewer line. My sewer line comes out, goes down, goes across, then goes up. So I figured my sewer's not going anywhere.
Oh,
That's the reason it's all running out in the motorhome.
Oh. Well, you've got a bathtub full
Yeah,
of
we
sewage?
gotta buy some more sewer line. I think we can fix it. When you get through there, I'll show you what I propose doing.
Well, maybe you want to describe it to the camera, then you'll have it for record.
All right, I will. I propose coming out and then turning it and going straight across and then dropping it down into the exit line instead of trying to go up into it. But if I come straight out, straight across, and drop it down, then it'll go out into the sewer line.
Because of sucking it out, it's
That's right.
septic
The way it is
system.
now, it actually comes out, curves, goes down, curves, goes in, curves, goes across, curves, goes up a little bit, curves, and goes up.
Now it's recording.
It says record.
Okay. But the recording goes out, but the
No,
line...
no, it's recording. Come on out the door.
Captain Carmichael is now General Carmichael. Formerly Sergeant Carmichael. He's
preparing to break camp, or maybe you would say breaking camp. There comes Margaret and Jean, and they're getting anxious. Good morning.
Good morning, Don.
How are you?
Big city.
Yeah, I can see that. Hey, how you like the camping trip?
I like it.
Don, what'd you do on the rod?
It's laying in that groove over there, Mr. Carmichael. In that rail? Okay.
That's a good place for it. Yeah, you told George about it. You only had an hour for it. Yeah.
How about you, Mrs. Gardner?
Oh, I'm ready to go. Move on.
we,
Ready to leave now.
Hey, George.
Would you close the door, please? Yeah.
You have any comments to make of your camping trip?
Yeah, I could have help, but instead I've got a cameraman.
Well,
You want us to go inside?
you guys can get things already inside there if you want to.
You get everything fastened up. Don't worry about the engine.
You do the engine.
I'll do the engine. You want to take his clothesline?
Better leave that next person. They may. That's a nice one.
Don, you're about to let me forget my bucket. This is a very valuable tool on this trip. Matter of fact, I expect you'll be carrying one from now on, won't you? Huh?
I tried to carry one in that other trailer.
Then you couldn't?
Well, I did, but I hadn't done it in this one. What I liked about them was when the gray water tank got full, I could always drain into it. And when you were in a primitive campsite, I'd offer to help, Mr. Carmichael.
Are you going to tell me that you could drain into it, and like that you could cheat, you could... Yeah.
Hey, your toilet, is there full in here?
What?
Your toilet is full of water? Oh, you want it?
Oh, you can flush it. I couldn't flush it until I closed this valve. You can flush it. It's got that chemical in it.
Oh, it'll
Yeah. Thank you.
I could help Mr. Carmichael,
No, you can't.
but I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do things right, number one. Number two, George, for some reason or other, when he views the film, feels that anyone that might be viewing it with him thinks that things happen by magic. And he would like to have it on record that without his hard work...
Wait a minute, Don. Wait a minute, Don. You did it wrong.
I did something wrong.
You did it wrong.
You can always bet that no matter what happens, somebody else did something wrong.
Don, we're in trouble.
Do I need to shut the camera down and come over there, Mr. Carmichael?
No. Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Carmichael has decided it probably would be best to have this operation recorded. Seeing he's getting older, it might be necessary to review the film the next time he goes out to figure out how to put this awning up and down. Mainly because we won't have the awning expert, or rather he won't. Margaret has felt that she has Mr. Carmichael well trained and that he'll do a competent job, but his memory might leave him down. This is the part of the operation that Mr. Carmichael enjoys most. Maybe if you let the jack down on this side and then put it back up again, you can solve that problem until you're able to readjust it. Another smart aleck. You just load it with smart alecks, aren't you?
I suggested that yesterday, I just forgot to do it. Give the clean towel out and wipe the pans on.
Is that the towel you used when you took the shower this morning?
Yeah.
I thought maybe I should take pictures of these 3 trees. I don't know if I've been trained to grow that way, or if they were crowded and bent and twisted through some act of God or nature. With Mr. Carmichael back in action. There's Ronald's boat. The neighbor's coming in. Ronnie has a very nice boat. We've had a couple of real pleasant days with considerable time just leisurely cruising around the river. This is an operation breaking camp that is not often viewed. And ordinary civilians are not privy to the operation. I can't equate it, and I'm sure Mr. Carmichael would not attempt to put it in the same technological field as launching a shuttle into space. However, the same basic fundamental principles need to be considered. Water, food, and storage. Now, George is not swallowing that hose. I think there is one thing worthy of note in this operation. The commander, the captain, does most of the menial work. I'm not exactly certain whether that's of his distrust for his health or an excess of energy. This unique system of storing his hose also serves as a purpose, for the purpose, rather, of a spare tire for anyone that might need a wheelbarrow tire replaced. Take notice there's nothing wasted. The towel that he used for his shower, he also cleaned his hose, water hose, the sewage, and now it'll be stored for the next camping trip. I think at this point it would be prudent for me to shut off the camera and go over and hold that door up. Otherwise, we might... What's that, Mr. Carmichael?
When we get to the dock, I don't want you making fun of me and taking pictures of me trying to put this thing in that little narrow strip.
Well, you've already taken care of that by asking us to make that request.
I figured that. I can throw this throttle forward and I can throw you all over this place.
And the camera, I don't think you wouldn't have any problem with me, but you might not like the camera treated that way.
You're right about that, I guess. You left the accessories on when you parked the car.
Mr. Carmichael, I'm sorry about that. That's 4 for you and 1 for me.
No, that 1 for me is about 3 for you.
You're the expert. Mr. Carmichael, we've really had a very fine camping trip. Enjoyed it tremendously. Appreciate it. You and Gene and Ronnie and Renee for help making it possible.
You're quite welcome. It was worth my 23 years in the Army to make it possible.
I can't remember to keep my finger out of the way of that lens, so I'll probably have it right on top of your eyeballs or something. As we leave our...
Why don't you get your fingers below that?
As we leave the anchorage,
Right there.
that's probably where they're supposed to be. I feel cushion or something there. As we leave our anchorage at the campsite, you can see the docks for many boats of various types. Pontoon boats, cabin boats, sailors, day sailors. Don't see any speed boats in this area.
There goes the boat.
There it is. Took me a while to find that one. We're out of the no wake zone. So George decided we needed a wake. Approaching the slip where Ron keeps his boat. I'm going to have to stop the film and be ready to jump overboard. At this speed, we might rip right on through the slip. Had ordered
orders from the captain to throw the fenders over, so...
Hold the fender over, you got the order?
Well, we just finished tying up Ronnie's boat. Next step is to walk back to the campsite. I don't know if we're going to eat or not, but Sergeant Carmichael, Commander Carmichael, Captain Carmichael, whatever he is in the process of letting the animals out.
Fine. Let's go home.
What, are you tired, George?
I just got this covered that boat. I can't take the keys out
Without help?
locking the lock.
Oh. In other words, you're saying, Don, get over here and quit taking my pictures.
What I'm saying is I'm not going to use my keys.
This is natural. There is one difference from the last time we had him in stocks down there at the old Tucson.
Oh, I can say, Don.
He lost the cap for his camera, and that's why I can take pictures with this nice camera.
Let's go home. This is segment 4, and picks up in...
Well, we're in the heart of cotton picking country. There's a cotton picker if I ever saw one. Behind him, he did a demonstration here. Where is he? There he is. Demonstration of cotton. I think he's preparing for a lecture this afternoon. They have a group of people.
This is the compressor that fails.
It does what?
Bales.
Oh, they're bales. I didn't realize that.
Let's walk up there closer to it.
What is that over there, George?
They actually run along beside the cotton picker and throws the cotton into that, and they use it to load it. They dump it into the wagon. See, here's the wagon over here. That dumps into the wagon.
Well, that's the wagon we're talking about. That looks like it's, what, 40 feet long?
Oh, I think at least that.
Now, this field, when it was something, another crop in here, is that right?
Yeah, corn.
Corn?
You see corn stalks out there. Well, here's Don out. He's looking at this is the way they store the cotton on the edge of the field before they take it to the gin. That cotton still got the seed in it and everything, and of course there's a certain amount of trash. The way it works is they have a cotton picker. We'll get a picture of that later. We don't have one now. Don's playing with his cotton, pulling it apart. But the cotton picker throws the cotton into the loader. That's the loader, and then the loader dumps it into the wagon, and the wagon brings it here and puts it in the compressor. This is the compressor, and it compresses it into these stacks, and these stacks sit on the edge of the fields until they can haul it into the gin, and we'll stop by a cotton gin and gin the cotton later on. Yeah. Let's go find what's been partially picked, and then we're going to try to find... George? What? No, this is... The cotton picker's made one sweep through this field right here, and you can see he's picking 4 rows at a time. And you can see, look over here on the right, there's 4 rows that he skipped. Apparently it wasn't quite ready to pick yet, so he's moved his equipment on to another field. But you've got some picked, and then you got this that wasn't picked, and then you got another row picked, and then this whole field out here hasn't been picked yet. Across the road is a field that's been picked, and you can see, well, it's going to be it. These cotton pickers actually pick the field cleaner than when they were being picked by slaves or by people. I remember as a child that you didn't see a field this clean. But of course, you got to remember that they didn't, here they spray the foliage, kill the foliage before they pick. And when people pick cotton, they always picked it out. The leaves were still on it. And we'll show you some pictures of what that was like, so you couldn't see as much cotton as you can now.
Well, we came out to see a cotton picker work.
Had to hire one.
George found one, and he's herding him down to the field.
We told him we had to hire a cotton picker. You can see it throwing the cotton into the he's going to be how fast it's filling up. Come the cotton picker down the road now. Now I'm going to hold it right here and you'll see how clean he's picking it. Give you some idea for the size of the cotton picker. This is a 4-row picker coming in now, coming in toward us. And you can see what it looks like now, and I'll show you the same shot after he comes out to the end of the row of turn. This cotton picker is a 9960, and he's getting ready to dump. This is a 9930 now, and he's getting ready to dump.
One thing is, one-man job. It's everybody.
Yeah. What is your name?
My name is John Jr. Jones.
John Jr. Jones?
Yes, sir.
What's your son's name?
What's his name? Oh, good. His name's John Jr.
John Jr. Okay. They're compressing the cotton now into what he called it a module. This is what they use instead of baling cotton anymore.
steps before it's trucked off to the cotton mill site. That this is the Middleton Cotton Company. They have been just so kind, no problems at all in allowing us to go in and view the operation.